Today on The Riff, Jeremy and Justin sit down to talk about what's coming up for North Point. We hope today is helpful and hopeful. Thanks for listening.
Welcome to another episode of The Riff. Justin, it's good to see you today.
Oh, it's so good to see you.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of excited. We had Valentine's Day.
Like everybody did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I actually, this is kind of fun because we're recording it before Valentine's Day. So I was going to ask you, how'd your Valentine's Day go?
Well, then I was going to say, it went really well.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. I surprised Jane. She said it was the best Valentine's Day we've ever had.
That is awesome.
I wasn't even like prepared, really. I'm just being me.
Well, the kind of money that you spent for it,
which was zero. Yeah, and that's what her thing was. So she was like, somehow you didn't spend any money and you made me feel like $1 million. That's what she said verbatim. I know. It was, yeah. She said, just you being you. That's what she said.
How do you, as a dad of daughters, do you make Valentine's Day a family thing? Is it like this is like a mom-dad thing? Is it a both thing? What do you do?
A whole family. It's a whole family.
Okay.
Chocolates for all.
Really?
Yeah. Love chocolate.
Yeah.
And I also, especially when you get into Easter, like hollow bunnies, like the hollow chocolate bunnies.
What do you want?
That's a crime. That's a crime. No, solid chocolate. I want that baby to break
you gotta
a tooth.
gnaw on that thing.
Yes, and that's what I want.
I feel like a beaver.
I would.
In the dam, like that. That's not a swear. Like
no. I get it. I get it. So yeah, I don't want a hollow heart. I don't want a hollow bunny. Right. Wow. I want Russell Stover's. Okay, buttercream filling.
Buttercream.
I mean, just so good, so good.
But buttercream filling, but you don't want a hollow. So either solid chocolate or
buttercream. And don't give me like the mixed bag of stuff where I don't know, and then I have to follow a chart, and then I have to have like a degree in chemistry to figure out. Wait, is this like a raspberry crunch with coconut?
Cupid roulette is what I call that.
I can't stand Cupid roulette.
No. What part of the bunny do you eat first?
Ears. 100%. Yeah. I'm not an animal. Where do you start?
Tail.
What?
It's not long. I just feel like sneak attack. Bunny's looking that way, and I come from behind. So that's clearly the best place.
Yeah, no, I'd never thought of it that way. Yeah.
Well, I don't even.
Let's see. We're only 2 minutes. Listen, last episode we went a while riffing, but I feel like we're ready to start now. Mm-hmm. Do you wonder if people are like, why don't they just start the episode when they start like talking about what they're going to talk about? Or do you?
No, because that takes me down a dark path.
Yeah, no.
Then I start thinking, I don't think they. Listen.
No.
What are we? 180 something episodes in?
A lot.
If perchance we have listeners still with us. Do you think for a second they tune in for the content?
No. They'd listen to Gross Shell if they want content.
What would that sound like?
Sound a lot like this. It would be very, very serious, very quick, 24 minutes. I'll give you a workbook, and then we'll go talk about it after.
So that's what it would sound like.
Craig, I am so sorry. I know when we were talking the other day, you said, please stop imitating
it, guys. And he's so Craig. Craig. Oh, man.
I just like to feel like those of you who are joining us, you're like family, right? Yeah. It's just kind of like, you ever have those... I picture it like a kind of a stormy night outside, or maybe it's like a blizzard or something. And the family had dinner at the table, right? Okay. And now it's mom, dad time at the table. They're just going to talk about the day. And so I'm putting a puzzle together. My brother's doing some Legos. And we're in the living room within earshot. And we just hear them kind of like laughing and having fun. And just that vibe of like when mom and dad are just having that good time. No. We just like being close. No. I like to think our listeners feel like that when they listen to us.
I would guarantee they feel like that.
Yeah. I love that.
Me too.
I love that. And you know what? We have our little spats. But boy.
We always come back together. No, it's not. It's not about the spat. No, it's bigger. It's bigger.
It's just another excuse to make up. So anyway, hey, we got a couple things coming up.
Yeah, actually, really exciting.
So we are in this series. Whack-a-mole, which isn't all that different than guacamole.
No, and
you
we
spell
spelled it WHAC, which I always thought it was WHACK.
No, and we spelled it that way. That way it's closer to guacamole.
I know.
So the whole point of the series is we are going into another series soon. We're going to talk about that today.
Yep.
That's going to be basically like a 2-year lease on the Bible.
Yeah.
That committed to a specific series. And so this series allows me to go wherever I want to go. And so I'm excited about it. So we're talking about different things that pop up. We've been in the series, and then this next weekend we'll wrap up our series. But we're going to have 1 week in between, and that's going to be, and by the time this releases, we might have a name for the weekend, but like the whole idea is we're going to talk about the mission of North Point. Mm-hmm. Our idea is that it's going to happen a couple times every year.
Yep.
And if it flops, it shall never be heard from our lips again. Right? Whatever. No big deal. But the whole idea is let's bring one of the things, if you've been listening this year to the podcast, one of the big 5 things, a focus for the year is engagement. And we even took 2 weeks of early 2025 Riff podcasts to bring our next class to everyone who listens to the Riff. The whole point is we want as many people to engage with our mission as possible and to find their role in the mission. So as we've been talking about, how do we get a next class, more people into it, more people through it? We talked about what if twice a year we celebrate our mission, we walk through our mission, and to get ahead of the obstacle, the challenge of that is what if someone already knows our mission? They're like, that was a waste of a weekend. And I loved how you compared it to baptism. So walk us through that.
That's John Martz.
Every time John says something good, immediately I assume it's from you.
Okay, first off, I love that principle.
Yeah,
I'm just going to let you know
100%.
that right now. And I'm also going to take that to heart.
Okay.
So what I said was... No,
Mel and I were talking.
No, he's sitting there and he's just like, I can't imagine someone being like, baptisms again? Like you're going to do the water thing? All right. Yeah, no, that's cool. No, I mean, are we going to do something else next week? Or is that, so we're just going to do like change life stuff today? Is that what? No, that's cool. And it's so true.
It
right?
is. People love
Well, it's
baptism.
like, yes. Like if we're talking about the mission and someone's like, oh, the mission. Yeah, the mission. Like what? I just, why are you coming? Like,
Yeah.
like for real, like
Yeah.
what, like we're going to talk about finding or creating a safe place to find and follow Jesus.
Yeah.
Like in detail and the why and the how and inviting everyone to be a part of it. Right. Like I love it. I love it that we're doing it on a weekend. I love it that we're doing it. That's going to be a very intentional weekend. That is for the person in the seat that's been there for years.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it's going to be very intentional for the person walking in for the first time,
Yep.
which I love. I love it.
Because we're coming up, later next month or so, April 20th, well, I guess a little while. April 20th, we have Easter. And this gives us plenty of time to get as many people. We have thousands of people who call North Point home to be able to get as many people locked in on this mission. Easter isn't a holiday. Easter is a missional opportunity. And to be able to say, okay, how do I leverage this natural curiosity with this missional opportunity? How do I then serve in a very meaningful way? I feel like this could be the most impacting part of engagement that we can do all year long. So we're excited about that. We have a really cool gift we're going to do as well. And we'll be throwing that out on all of our socials. Our way of saying, hey, we want to invest in this. We believe that the greatest thing about the mission of North Point are the people who live it and the people that will be impacted by it. And so it's going to be a fun day to celebrate mission. And if you're not into mission, but you just love church attendance, just skip it. Skip it and come back the next week. So it'll be fine.
So we have like all of that in a row, right? Baptisms, and then we roll into that.
Yeah, baptisms is next week.
Yeah. So it's going to be incredible. Like just a 3-week, just mission critical element, I think, for the lifeblood of what North Point is in 2025. You've got baptisms, and you've got that next weekend, and then
we're launching our brand new series.
that's right.
Our brand new series. We should have saved. We should have saved a series that we did in January. We should have saved that title for this next series that we're going to do. Same old, same old.
Yeah, because it really is going to be same old, same old. It really will be.
What we're going to do, we're going to walk through. We've talked about it a little bit on the podcast. We've talked about it a little bit in messages. And my hope is that by the time we launch it on, March 8th, 9th, by the time we launch it then, that everyone who calls North Point home will be at least familiar with the idea. The invisible Jesus, right, is this idea that invisible Jesus, not because you can't find Jesus in Scripture, but some of the Scripture that you don't see Jesus in at first blush, as we look deeper, we see Jesus was there the whole time. His attributes, his fingerprints, the Scripture reveals who Jesus is. So it's not going to be a 66-week academic study of who wrote this, when do the theologians figure that they wrote it. It's not going to be, here are the 17 key words in this book, which I'm not opposed to that. But there's Bible college classes on that, and there's online classes on that. This is going to be a week by week look at maximum one book in a week. Maybe we'll take a couple weeks, and we're going to pick a story in the book. So we're not trying to do the overview of the book for the whole thing, but we're going to show, here's an example of how Jesus becomes visible in this book of the Bible. And so we'll start with Genesis. We'll go all the way through Revelation. It'll probably take 2 years because, I'm not the only one that speaks at North Point. And so we'll have natural breaks. And I think people will probably appreciate that. It'll be different as well. And then we'll have holidays, we'll have different things as well. So we're not going to be bound to it. But it's a commitment we're making. Let's take 66 different books that we call the Holy Bible, and say, how does Jesus show up in this book? And I'm so excited about Genesis. And nervous about Leviticus. Actually, that's not true. I've already got something for Leviticus. I got a line that's going to be funny. I think it's going to be funny for Leviticus.
Don't release it now.
No?
No. The anticipation is building. Can you imagine? I was like, you got to be there for Leviticus.
No, here's the bummer. The truth is, it probably won't be near as funny as I think it is. Let me tell you this: when I'm writing my message, So, you've seen my notes,
yeah.
Have you seen notes?
Yeah.
So I kind of manuscript it,
yeah.
But so it's funny that some people say, "Oh man, you memorize your message." No, I've got it pre-manuscripted, and I color code it, right?
Yeah.
So. This is stupid. This is the riff. We're behind the scenes. So, do you know what green is on my notes?
I don't know what the colors are.
Okay. So, on my notes, if you see green, it's intended humor.
Okay. Okay. Intended humor?
Which probably is
I love that it's intended.
You just saw how the sausage is made right there, right?
Green is wait for applause. Yeah. Wait for laughter. Wait for laughter to die down.
Ellipsis. Right. So here's what I have. People like that. Okay, but green, I'll say this, green is intended humor. And so what's funny is, as I'm writing my message, part of it is, Leanne will always say, I don't want too much green on there. But I'm like, what, and then there's other parts where so I've got all these color codes, but if I'm looking at my manuscript when I'm done, I could be like, oh, there's no green anywhere near here. I got to think about it. Now, what's on the paper and what comes out often is way different, and actually in between services as well. But at least it's how I process and prepare to be able to bleed out on the weekend. But what's funny is like if for some reason, like a campus pastor has my notes on a Saturday, and so if they're following along, and then when we have our after service meeting on Saturday, they can see what stuff's bombing. Because they'll be like, Jeremy delivered this as a green and he got nothing there. And so he had to shift it and make it look like it was a real thought. Right? So I'll be like, that shouldn't be green. That should be struck. Okay, that's terrible. And then sometimes just natural green just jumps out of there. So, but so all that to say is, in my message on Leviticus, which, anyway, somewhere I think late March, on Leviticus, I've already got one green highlighted item there, and it's rich. And if it doesn't land, it's not on me. It's not. It would be the audience.
Highlighters are ready.
Yeah.
You can change that, baby. Yeah.
Matter of fact, if you sit near the front rows, if you would bring a green highlighter, and then when you're taking notes, you write it out, just highlight it in green, and that way I know the joke landed. You're like, haha, Chuckles. Because green just means Chuckles McChuckerson right there. So
That's funny.
yeah. So
All right.
no, I'm excited about the series.
I am.
What do you think we'll get out of the series? And I'll tell you what I'm hoping we get out of the series.
Great. I'm excited. Two things that I'm excited on for this one. I think it's very similar to what we just talked about with baptisms next, all that kind of stuff, is that I don't think that there's a week that if I'm inviting somebody to be like, hey man, but listen, like we're going to be talking about Jesus. So I don't know if like this is the week for you.
Right.
Like what? Or if I'm coming, I'm like, we're going to talk about Jesus again. Martin Luther had a really famous saying of, he would preach the gospel over and over and over and over and over. And people would say, hey, why are you only preaching the gospel? And his answer was, well, when we learn to live it, I'll stop preaching it. Right? Like we'll go deeper when we get this covered. When we learn how to like love each other.
Right.
Then we'll like go like super deep. So it's that. I'm like, yeah, we're going to talk about Jesus over and over and over and over, which I think is actually the deepest thing we can do. So I'm excited about that aspect of it. I'm also really excited about the New Testament part of it.
Yeah.
Because I think there's so many times that we see Jesus in the New Testament, but I think that specifically, this is a riff, the American church has Americanized that Jesus, westernized that Jesus, created it into a white Jesus that pets a lamb, where I'm like, even though I see him, where is he? Because right. I don't think that, so I'm really excited about that element of it, of digging into the New Testament part of it to where it's like, there's Jesus. It's like, but is that really like the Jesus of the scriptures, of the gospel, like the one that if we met, we would probably be like, whoa. I don't think we agree. Like that. So I'm really, really excited about on those two levels for sure. What are you hoping to get out of it?
Well, I hope there's just this hunger that draws us even more intently into Scripture to say, okay, this is supposed to be the revelation of Jesus, not this. It's not to be made into this code of conduct, and I certainly don't mean that it's not going to impact how I live out my life. It should, but the purpose of this is to help me see Jesus, and everything there has the opportunity to do that. Like the book of Esther. Esther is the only book in the Bible that doesn't even mention God, and God's fingerprints are all over it. To tell the story of Esther, it's impossible to not tell the story of how God's love for people. And so I would hope that it draws us in. There's an illustration, and I'll probably use it on a weekend sometime, but I've been really just kind of internalizing it, is I've been to a lot of aquariums and zoos, right? And when I go to like a zoo, if I I've seen bears, I've seen, you see like apes or whatever, gorillas in the zoo. And I've never been afraid. Because I trust the thick glass. Even though I can see it, I know there's no way it can impact me. Right? Even though I can read the stats about how much they weigh, what they eat, what kind of people they like to eat, all that stuff. It doesn't faze me. I can have my popcorn and my Coke Zero and be like, that's cool. That's really cool. Knowing, even though the thing I can see clearly, it's not going to come out and get me. But if I am on a safari tomorrow and I fall out of the bus, right, of the safari, and all of a sudden I'm surrounded by something, I have this awareness, this intensity, this overwhelming fear of the very wild thing that I used to not be afraid of. It could impact me right now. And when I go into scripture, when I go into worship, what drives me nuts is when we sing songs that are so wild. We're talking about the God, that one word of authority from God could change everything. We're talking about the God. We sang a song this last week, that as we were recording this, that talked about, I will surrender the result. Basically, I'll surrender the results of the thing I'm going through to you. I trust you. How do we sing that with a smile? We can't sing that politely. I'm like, that's the most wild thing a human could sing. Like, what if I'm struggling with a medical situation? What if, even worse, my child's struggling with a medical situation? And I have tamed scripture. I have aquariumed scripture. I have wowed and zooed scripture that I can sing powerful lyrics and not expect those lyrics to actually interact with my life even. And so we're looking at scripture totally sterile. But I'm like, what if my kid dies?
Yeah.
God, I surrender results to you, and here's my. That should make us mad, angry, weeping, passionate, and worshipful. Yeah. And so what happens? We sing and read great truths, and somehow so anyway, what am I hoping to get out of it? That we would just knock down the glass walls between us and a holy God and be like, He's in there. He's in there. Do your thing, right? And every time we open up scripture, every time we dare worship, there would be this sense of fear, anger, sadness, regret, all of that we offer. And we're like, all right, do it.
All right. I say we cancel next weekend and baptisms. We just start because
I just don't want to do polite, polished Christianity.
Yeah.
It's so sterile.
Yeah.
And it's not because it's not effective for the world. It's not effective for me.
Yeah.
So anyway, if we can just take a field trip into the wild wilderness, like you know how nervous we would be if we're in the wilderness of Alaska right now and you hear a bear?
Listen, I just talked to a guy at Republic, okay? And one of his things, he just turned 40, and he was telling me, man, I just feel like I've got to get out. So what he's doing is he's going to Alaska, getting on a snowmobile, and going into the woods for 2 weeks.
No.
Yeah. And then wherever he ends up, a helicopter will come and get him. And then he's got a guide with him, taking his father-in-law and two of his friends. But he's just like, there's something about this, right? Like exactly what you're talking about. Something about getting outside of myself and outside of this comfort zone, outside of this glass, and actually interacting with like the wild, right? Like it's just,
When's the last time you were sitting there at church in worship and you thought you heard a bear huff, spiritually speaking? Like, I think God's in this place.
Yeah.
And not in a weird, I'm going to grab a banner and run around to bring attention to me. That's silly. But in the sense of, like, what if these words were true?
yeah.
What if He is worthy of it all? Like, that would change my life, right? All these things. So my thought is, yeah, let's go on this wilderness deal. So I'm excited about that for sure. That's, I think it'd be a fun journey. Well, and here's the other thing too. I'm trying to determine what level we should riff, which is
We're 23 minutes in, so
Yeah.
the diehards are with us. Everybody else.
I don't love multi-site, so I'll say that.
Yeah.
Like, okay, let me
Yeah.
say it. Why? Because now we are one, and this isn't a change of direction. Okay, it's we are one. Like, I don't prefer to have all the details that need to happen for us that could, if if we're not, we have to be more intentionally present at every campus because the default is sterile. It doesn't mean multi-site is sterile.
Right.
But we could run, by definition, send something to us from a satellite up into outer space. It hits something and comes back so that we can have campus at 4 different locations. And then the timing, and we got pinch points and people and parking lots, and we got all these different things, and we have to be done at 67 minutes here so we can empty this, and kids check in, and I get it. That's awesome. But all that's like, if we're not careful, it makes us walk through wonders of wildlife thinking we're in the wilderness. We're not. And so what I want to do as a leader of the organization, even with this, I am thankful for the benefit that multi-site allows us to be. I am thankful for that. And multi-services, we can micro, having 2 services is the same type of thing. And now we're just complicating it all of it. But let's leverage the impact we have all together, but let's not lose the very awe of the wild that we're talking about. Like, let's talk about a God that changes everything. He's unpredictable. He is wild. He is sovereign. And time's up. Next. Like, come on. And again, I'm not, like, trust me, I'll never let us lose our mission, lose our grip, be weird, nothing like that. That's ridiculous. But I want us in the times we gather to never be hypnotized.
Well, and I think it's important that, I think exactly what you're saying. Like, being inside of a container and being inside of a time limit and all of this kind of thing. Like, I don't think that's the evil part.
Nope.
Right? Like, it's actually helpful. The evil part is when we focus on that and that becomes the key.
Yes. It's a guide, not a God.
100%. So I'm with you. I don't like multi-site. I don't like multi-service. It'd be awesome just to gather all together. I still don't want a 4-hour service though.
No.
Even if so there's beauty in containers.
100%.
There's beauty in the guardrails. That's how creativity is actually born, is inside of spaces, right? It is. It's there's more freedom inside of that. You had an example of that, right? Maybe you did. Maybe Jamie did.
Probably John Martz.
It was John Martz. It was John. I don't know. I don't. But the whole study of the kids in the playground. The kids in the playground, they put them out there, and then there was a massive field, no fence, and a road, and they all huddled by the teacher.
Really?
They all huddled. And then they did the same experiment in another space, massive fence, road, and they went all the way to the fence. They used all the space, right? Yeah. So this idea of these boundaries actually do not contain us as long as the boundaries are there to actually expand us.
So if you think of that same thing, what is the Bible? It's the canon, okay? If we go back, and that's a historical Bible word, it literally means this is the measurement, this is the fence. Mm-hmm. We don't need other books, right? So these are the fence. And now we have boundaries, but let's let this be beautiful within this, not predictable. And so as we dive into scripture, bottom line is I do feel like this though. I feel like it's not about, hey, every weekend we're going to grow together. I think every weekend is one way we can grow together, and we got beautiful mission and things that we can do together. And that's going to be awesome. But daily, I just encourage us, and we've talked a lot about this over the years, but let's just, as we look into scripture, we'll have resources like crazy in the series. I'm really excited about that. Like, we'll have resources that you can go and say, some people I know will be like, hey, I'm going to read whatever book we're on. I'm going to read that book in advance, right? Not that we're going to hit every of it, but just there's going to be so many resources, or I want to do a deep dive on this character that's in the book, or I want all these different resources. But every time we go to scripture, every time we do a reflection, whatever that looks like for anybody, is think, okay, what did that scripture, who said it, who'd they say it to, what did it originally mean to the person that it was said to? Then we could then interpret, here's what it means to us. It's not something that you have to be a paid professional to do. You have to go on this treasure hunt to do. And there's some tools that this series will help us develop, the rhythms that will help us individually to, when we open up scripture, to dive. What did it mean then? Okay. And, how do we find out what it meant then? All right. What does it now mean to me? And how do I live it out and let this wild God live here? So I love boundaries. And here's the truth. I do love, I love the opportunity that we have with the multi-site, with this. But man, let's not go through the motions. That's one of I've got 10 commandments that I've got in our Springfield office. We got a little cubby, and I've got these 10 commandments. And one of the commandments that I see every week before I go out and I speak, and one of the rules is don't go out and bring the same old shtick, right? And it's just this reminder is don't go through the motions. We're talking about a wild God with real live people, and what we're about to do can change everything. And let's have that kind of wild curiosity every time we gather, and let that impact how we scatter. So it'll be good. So baptisms this weekend.
Oh my mercy! And then next weekend
is next. And then
that's confusing. We have to rebrand that. Yeah,
so
that's tough.
next isn't next, but next is the next.
It's the next.
Yeah.
So just
mission weekend.
Next 3 weeks.
Baptism weekend, just mission weekend, and same old next couple of years.
Invisible Jesus. Yeah. Wild God.
Route 66.
Yeah.
Cruising through scripture. Have a great week, everybody. Thanks for listening to The Riff.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Riff. We'll have a brand new episode every week, wherever you find podcasts.